there been a more fascinating time to be in business and to be in technology and to be operating in this part of the world across Asia Pacific? I mean, you know, sometimes you just wake up and you think, like, this is really about as special of a time as it gets, especially to be within, like, the world of technology, as technology and business have never been closer together than they are right now. Steve, those were some amazing insights, as usual. This is probably the one event that I look forward to the most every year, because some of the predictions and also the insights around what's going on in the world, I find them so useful. And you know, virtually all the time, everything is right on point with what we're observing, and they usually play out with unbelievable accuracy. So really, a lot of credit to you and your team. I also think it's kind of interesting because Canalys is starting to evolve into more of a retreat style. We do CrossFit now, and yoga, and cruises, and marathons, and maybe we'll look at renaming it to the Retreat by Canalys or something like that, right? So, look, I want to share something with you today. This is a thought that I think that it can change the career trajectory of every single person in this room. I think that it can change the path of each of the different organizations that you work for or that you lead. And I know that it can affect ultimately your customers. And so I have a thought within here that I want to share with you today that starts with acknowledgement of what's going on in the world. So we commissioned a survey this year that essentially went across about 4,000 executives globally, across all different types of industries. And there were a set of insights that came out of this survey. The first was that nearly half of them felt like they're unclear on what their own industry is going to look like within the next 3 years. And about half of them said, you know, they're a bit worried about their own organization's viability within their industry. And that's pretty shocking within the next 3 years, right? The other insight was that virtually all of them, so 80% or nearly 80%, came back and said, look, we're seeing a tremendous amount of disruption already. In fact, we're seeing all kinds of new non-traditional competitors within our own landscape that we're having to think about. And so, you know, when you start thinking about the job that we've all done for a number of years on trying to help with IT, operational efficiencies, and driving automation, the pressure on our customers is higher than ever before to drive out costs, to try and get into the business of innovation, because the demands from the line of business are higher than ever before to innovate, to bring new creativity, to bring new customer experience, and to do it as quickly as possible because the amount of pressure there is across each of their different verticals. And so what we've observed is that ultimately what surfaced is 4 conversations around different journeys that customers are on these days. They're trying to think about what's their strategy on digital transformation. How will they drive operational efficiencies and operate within a multi-cloud via an IT transformational strategy? How do they start thinking about how people work these days, whether it may be at home or it may be abroad or it may be late at night or it may be early in the morning? That really the workforce transformation shift is like really in the middle of a really interesting period of time, because employee experience matters a great deal as it relates to overall workforce productivity and competitive edge. And then finally, the threat around security and the need to have end-to-end architectures to address that threat is at an all-time high. So security transformation around information is a really hot subject. So this is really the conversations that we're observing every organization in every industry having these days. And so we organized this company around Dell Technologies and the different family of different firms within this umbrella to help address each of these different transformational journeys. So we asked a follow-up question to those 4,000 folks across the globe and across all these different industries, and that was, So how are you feeling on your own journey from an IT and digital standpoint? And you know, only 6% of them came back and said, we feel really confident that we're in that culture of operationally efficiency on IT, that we're operating at a really highly efficient level, but ultimately that we've established a culture within our firm at scale to do creativity and to drive innovation, and that it's giving us competitive edge and it's allowing us to go take share. So that's good for that small 6%. But what that means to everybody in this room is that ultimately the balance of the customers that we talk to every day, they're in the middle of that journey or they haven't even started it yet. And most of them have to go through a tremendous amount of pressure to deal with those two large curves that I showed you earlier. Now here's the big thought, okay? So I want to share this insight with you from Forrester from the last year. So Forrester came out and said, look, one of the big shifts that's occurred is this. Customer buying process has been pretty much the same for the last 35 years. But the big shift for channel organizations, like all of us in this room, the big shift is that if we cannot get closer to a line of business discussion before talking about the technology to ultimately solve business problems, then the outlook can be really challenging. So this is the big thought that I want to contemplate together here. And so here's the observation. The different conversations that all of us have across industry. The first is this. Most of our end user customers come back and say, look, we're trying to think about the number of vendor and supplier relationships that we have today, and we're trying to rationalize the number of relationships from 100, 200, or 300 different suppliers that we have, and we're trying to get it down to a handful of trusted strategic partners that understand our business. We're trying to ask each of the different organizations that do business with us if they're comfortable getting from that IT engagement conversation up into a line of business discussion around what we're trying to accomplish as an end user. And so what that means is that there's this engagement continuum from technology, which we're all really comfortable with, all the way up into that line of business engagement model. And what that ultimately means is that increasingly we have to get to a spot where our level of comfort and confidence across each of our different teams to engage around business problems, around new product and service development, across the multi-cloud layer, into and across all the different traditional applications and also the new applications that are being built, right? And the workloads that are driving them behind that. And ultimately having a conversation around, is there technology that can help them cross this, I guess, chasm as quickly as possible? So what this means is, Steve talked about the pressure and the need for talent, a different level of talent these days than ever before. Because can our sales organizations carry a conversation from end to end if that's what the customer is asking for? It's a challenge, right? I mean, what it means is that ultimately we have to push ourselves and we have to teach our organizations on how to get out of that comfort zone on the left and move further and further to the right around that zone of business and what's happening. And that's pretty hard stuff. That's the big challenge. I mean, that's the big opportunity, but that's the big challenge. So to help with that, to help with these types of conversations, it really gives you the foundation for why Dell Technologies was formed as a family of companies. And this is really to help you ultimately engage end-to-end from the line of business and all the way down into the infrastructure. So you start thinking about how this organization is built. We consider obviously the Dell aspect of the end user experience, the infrastructure layer from a Dell EMC standpoint within the data center, VMware's capability from virtualization up into multi-cloud management, ultimately out into that end user device management, right? We talk about, the ability to help provide a public cloud experience on mission-critical applications with Virtue Stream. We talk about the role of application development and analytics with Pivotal. And then all of that wrapped end-to-end from a security standpoint with RSA and SecureWorks. So that's, why the organization was pulled together. There's a couple of foundational points that are really critical. One is really the level of services that we need to go deliver, across this population is we have to put a lot of investment into how do you go deploy this? How do you consult around these conversations, ultimately? So we're putting a lot of investment into that on how to enable the channel to go appreciate providing that end-to-end experience to your customers. And ultimately what it means is we're shifting from maybe a view on constructing and building IT to more of a consumption-based set of models. So can I just pay for what I'm using rather than have to construct the whole thing? So this is putting a lot of, new challenge and fresh opportunity, for all of us. So those that can get it right are starting to really benefit. And so in thinking about that, being able to provide that end-to-end experience, I wanted to share one insight on just observations from the last year. We have some partners that have said, look, we get that, and we want to provide a specific set of end-to-end experiences to end users, our end users, and ultimately, we understand how the family of companies comes together for us to help unlock those types of conversations. The result is that the partners that have spent more time around how to go do that, the results have been, if you compare it to different partners that operate with only 2 of our lines of business or operate with only 1 of our lines of business, ultimately they're seeing a much higher level of revenue as a result to their overall business.